we've completed 8 games of Oklahoma's regular season, and I still have absolutely zero clue what the identity is of this offense. I mean, it kind of feels like we've played 8 games right now, and I don't feel like we've seen the same game plan, same type of attack from this Oklahoma offense over the course of the first 2 months of the season. I'm not sure why that is. You've obviously, got a Heisman caliber level quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. Offensive line's been kind of hit and miss. We'll dive into that here in just a second, but you've got really good skill talent out on the perimeter. But for me, the biggest problem that I have coming out of this game on Saturday, and it is the coaching decisions, whether it's personnel, whether it's schematics, whether it's certain play calls throughout the course of the game. And it didn't take long, Adam. It took, within the first minute for us to really have our first head-scratching decision for Jeff Lebby, calling the game on Saturday. First play of the game, okay, you throw an incomplete pass to Austin Stogner. That sets you up at a 2nd and 10. First carry of the game goes to Gavin Sawchuk. He reels off 8-9 yards, doesn't even get touched all the way until, the 7 yards, making the, 3rd down and 2, 3rd and 1. And after you have a successful carry like that, where we knew going into this game that Kansas was going to be very gettable, their run defense was piss poor, one of the worst in the Big 12 Conference, one of the worst collectively nationally. And, you've got a 3rd and 1 after picking up 9 yards, and your call is to throw a hitch from the opposite hash all the way across the field to a Jalil Farouk. Keep it simple, stupid. I tweeted it out. Just hand the ball off. Keep the chains moving. If you can't pick up 1 yard against Kansas, then, you probably shouldn't be, playing football consistently at the Division I level. But yeah, zero aggressiveness in Lebby's game plan. Kansas defensively, most of this game either had a 7-man box, or they were playing their safeties, inside of 15 yards. They were just, dingling the bait, just challenging Oklahoma. Please, we're daring you to try to throw the ball deep down the field. And this was just something that, Oklahoma, basically because of the play calling of the offensive coordinator, just simply refused to do. I think that Dylan Gabriel, he threw 2 or 3 passes longer than 10 yards all game long prior to that first drive, or prior to that final drive in the fourth quarter. 6 jet sweeps, a couple of bubble screens, a lot of quick game behind the line of scrimmage. What are we doing? I just don't know what the identity of this offense is. I don't know what the game plan was. And I just simply don't know what Jeff Lebby was trying to accomplish as he was calling this game yesterday.
You mentioned the offensive identity of not knowing what it is. And I've been kind of thinking about that question actually most of the season, because in game 1, we saw OU come out against Arkansas State and play a lot of tackle over and run the ball pretty effectively on the Red Wolves. That went away. Haven't seen that since that very first game. I don't know why. We saw some different things in SMU than we saw against Tulsa. And then here we are against Kansas. And I don't know what the bread and butter play of this offense is. Maybe like a zone run, but I really don't know what the bread and butter go-to play is, or go-to strategy of this team is, because I guess maybe you could say like wide receiver screens, or just screen passes in general. Because that's really all we saw Saturday. And I think OU leads the country. I think I saw that on Twitter somewhere, that OU leads the country in 24% of passes being behind the line of scrimmage. And, I think there's definitely some limitations on this roster talent-wise. We're not seeing a lot of tackles being broken by receivers or even running backs outside of Tawee Walker. So there is challenges there, I think. But at the same time, like, you don't want to just run gimmicky plays all the time, because you have better players than Kansas does. And I wonder in my mind, maybe this is kind of a far-fetched theory, Tyler, but check me on it if you feel differently here. But I kind of wonder if the play calling is a little bit of a result of Brent Venables potentially here, because early on in the game, a couple drives, I think maybe 2, where before OU said, hey, let's just commit to running the ball. And I was texting you in that moment and said, Brent Venables needs to take over for Jeff Lebby and say, you're running the ball, essentially. Mm-hmm. And after that point, that's basically what we saw. And I kind of wonder if Venables told him to do that. But then Venables or Lebby, I don't know, someone should have said, hey, like, all right, we calm things down, we've run the ball, like, let's sprinkle a little bit of pass in. We need a little bit more balance. Because we basically got the Cody Thomas, Samaje Perine game plan from 2014 with a guy in Dylan Gabriel who's clearly much more talented there. And I kind of wonder if situationally Venables should have said, hey, before that final 3rd down, with a chance to ice the game, let's put the ball in Dylan Gabriel's hands. He didn't have to make the exact play call, but just say, hey, let's make our best player have the opportunity to make a play here. And I kind of wonder if Venables either should have or didn't or did, or maybe Venables made the call to run the ball there. I don't know, but I think that almost lands more on the head coach in some aspects.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, we talked about it in the group chat over the course of the game, that, it almost kind of feels like at times Oklahoma, tr- to to no fault of the players, they figure out a way to get in their own way and shoot themselves in the foot to play a brand of football that is the least efficient brand of offense as you could possibly do. And again, I know that we spotted them 14 points. Oklahoma found themselves down 14 nothing, in the first quarter yesterday. But once, Brent kind of got on the headset and say, hey, let's clean this up. Let's simplify. We're going to put Tawi Walker in. We're going to run the football down these guys' throat in the second quarter. And they went on a 21-10 run. To close out the second quarter, Tawi Walker. I mean, just looking at some of the drive charts, Adam. You go down the list here. Tawi Walker rushed for 5. Next play, 9-yard gain. Next play, 4-yard gain. Dylan Gabriel runs for 6 yards. Tawi Walker punches it in. It almost kind of feels like we were not okay with doing something so boring that is yet so effective. And maybe that's why we saw so many jet sweeps. Maybe that's why we saw, Jalil Farouk try to get some carries out of the backfield. But at the end of the day, Tawi Walker and Gavin Sawchuk collectively, combine that with the legs of Dylan Gabriel, they were finding successful, consistent ways to move the football on the ground against this KU front seven. And that was something that we saw a little bit of adjustments with the offensive line group. Obviously, Caden Green got some run at the left guard position. Jacob Sexton found his way at left tackle. And there were a couple of drives in the second quarter with both of those guys on the field that OU really, kind of asserted their will and, asserted their dominance running the football. And then you go into the halftime with a lead, and then you come right back out, and it's right back to the same stuff that got you in trouble at the beginning part of the game. So again, the basic fundamental 101 of an offensive coordinator finding ways to create matchups to where you can get the ball in the hands of your best players, give them an opportunity to make plays out in space and score points for you. And when you just look at the chart, Adam, I mean, just look at strictly the wide receiver position. Nick Anderson, probably the best performing, most talented wide receiver on this roster with Andrel Anthony being out. He had one target yesterday, and it was the one that was right over the middle of the field that he caught it in stride and it made a big play. Not one single time other than that one play did we try to force feed the ball to Nick Anderson, forcing him down the field. You can't tell me that a 6'4" wide receiver that's got the speed and the elusiveness can't outrun those Kansas cornerbacks, and he did it time and time again on Saturday. Drake Stoops, 4 catches. Jalil Farouk only was able to get the ball in his hand 3 times catching the football. Brennan Thompson, 1 catch, 1 big play. Wish we could see a little bit more of that now that Anthony is gone. But I don't know, Adam. I mean, for me, I don't want to just sit here and rip Jeff Lebby, but what are we doing? It's Kansas. I don't care that we've got, a 7-8 man rotation on the offensive line. I don't care that we don't have, a clear cut number one running back. To me, it's pretty clear cut who the best running back on this team is coming out of the game yesterday, but I just don't know what we're trying to do. I don't know. I don't see us trying to scheme any of our best players to be open to where they can make some plays. I just simply don't know. I don't know what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know what this coaching staff is trying to do on the offensive side of the ball. We can touch on all 3 position groups outside of Emmett Jones's crew because the wide receiver position to me ain't the problem. We can't figure out what we're doing on the offensive line. We're playing 9 guys during the middle of a Kansas game. We can't figure out the rotation on the running back position. Tawi Walker was really good yesterday. Gavin Sawchuk was able to find some success on the ground sporadically over the course of the game. And then the biggest head-scratching decision of it all, Adam, the first time that we've seen Javonte Barnes since the Tulsa game in the non-con was in the final drive with the game on the line, and we've seen time and time again same habits, still struggles to read blocks and see the holes, and I just don't know what we're doing. I really don't.
Yeah, it was really tough to see guys like Barnes not put in a position to be successful. But you mentioned a whole bunch of deficiencies about this offense. You're juggling lots of guys across the offensive line. It doesn't make sense. There's clearly some guys that are better than others, but they're rotating. I don't know why you're doing that. You're making it much harder on yourself by doing that. You really aren't playing the best running backs. The rotation there has not made sense mostly the entire year. Dylan Gabriel, we're big fans of. We like him, but we know what he is. We know he has limitations. We know he's not the typical type of Oklahoma quarterback. That's not his fault. He's what we have right now. We have to scheme around what he's able to do and what he's not able to do. So there's limitations across the board for this offense. And yet, top 7 in both total offense and scoring offense. There are people out there that are calling for Jeff Lebby's head, saying he should be fired for that. Is that crazy? Are those people crazy?
I don't think he shouldn't be fired, but I kind of the grace period, all of the extra string that we're giving him is the leash is kind of up at this point, in my personal opinion. And Adam, we've talked about there's a lot of things that we don't understand about the offense of this game. I don't understand why Jalil Farouk was the guy running the ball in between the tackles, ultimately led to a fumble and a turnover. I don't understand why in critical situations on third and fourth down we keep calling jet sweeps to Gavin when it hasn't worked all season. Once we've gotten into conference play, Gavin is a really good player, and he's going to have a really good career in Oklahoma, but he's not Percy Harvin. He's not Debo Samuel. He's not a good enough athlete to put him in a position where you are asking him to run a jet sweep a lot of the time to the short side of the field to be able to get to the corner and outrun some of
Makes
those
no
outside back.
sense.
It doesn't. So again, I don't understand why Jeff Lebby didn't give Dylan the opportunity. He's a guy that's played a lot of football. He's a fifth-year senior. Why you didn't give him the opportunity? Why you didn't trust him to be able to go out there and win the game with his arm late in the fourth quarter? Kansas knew, Adam, on that drive when we got the ball with just a few minutes left after the Ethan Downs interception, which if Oklahoma would have won that game, that would have been a play that we would be talking about for a long, long time. But when we got the ball back after the Downs pick, Kansas knew that we were going to try and kill the clock and force them to use their timeouts. All we needed was one, maybe two first downs, and you can call three. And what Lebby decides to do is you call three straight running plays up the gut with Javante Barnes instead of trying to get the ball over the middle to Drake Stoops to pick up a first down. Quick out route to Jalil Farouk is really good with the ball in his hands. Give him an opportunity to make a play one-on-one with the corner to pick up some yards. And I mean, seriously, if you're Jeff Lebby or DeMarco or Bill Beanbo, why can we not figure things out from a personnel standpoint 8 games into the season? I know that the flu was going around a few of these guys over the course, of the week leading up to the game, but what the heck is going on during the week of practice that prevents us from being able to get the best 11 on the field consistently on Saturdays?
You mentioned that last drive. It's one that after the game, Jeff Lebby in press conference and media basically said that, yeah, we thought our best chance was to, get the ball punted back to them with no timeouts left, and they'd have to drive down the field to score. That's not a decision your offensive coordinator makes, in my opinion. That's a head coach decision that comes down of, hey, what are we going to do on 3rd and 9, on 3rd and 8? Okay, let's run the ball. Now, Brent Venables is a defensive guy. Maybe he thinks that's the best pathway forward, but I think this is a learning moment for Brent Venables. Whether he told Lebby, hey, stick to the ground game and don't give up on it. Maybe he told him that. Maybe he told them, hey, run the ball on this last possession. We'll just run as much time as we can. If we get the first down, we get it. If we don't, we punt. Maybe that was his strategy. I kind of think that either Brent Venables made the decision to do that, or he didn't step in and say, hey, no, let's let Dillon Gabriel have the opportunity to win the game on this play. Because if he can't do it, then we don't deserve to win this anyway. So I kind of wonder if more blame should be put on Brent Venables' shoulders for this play calling situation. There's a lot of in between those bookends, but I really do wonder if Brent Venables is more to blame here.
Well, Brent Venables is the one that fell on the sword in the
He did, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Whether it was his fault or not,
he shouldered every bit of the blame. He didn't cast any of it onto his players. He didn't cast any of it onto his assistant coaches, which there's probably 2 or 3 that we could do a deep dive on how laughable of a performance either their decisions or some of the schematics of their personnel group was on yesterday. But I mean, at the end of the day, Adam, when you look at this, I know that the weather was bad. It was nasty. My brother-in-law, my dad were there. It was a little bit windy. It was, raining on and off over the course of the game. It was freezing cold, but Lance Leipold trusted his quarterback, Jason Bean, to go out there and make plays and win the football game. Whether it was making those, making those critical conversion passes, along the sideline, or, hitting his tight end Fairchild over the middle of the field on a couple of big plays and some key moments. Oklahoma just simply did not give Dillon Gabriel the opportunity to do so. If it wasn't a quick screen, if it wasn't a bubble route or a handoff, that was not something that Jeff Lebby was willing to call. And again, I just go back to the fact that Nick Anderson, 1 target. Jaden Gibson, 0 targets, barely played at all. Nick Anderson wasn't even on the field for that final, kind of half-ass Hail Mary play into the end zone. So I just simply don't know. But Adam, before we touch on things defensively, I do want to, you do have to give Kansas some credit They played a good football game. They had a nice game plan coming off of a bye. OU coming into their place, first AP top 10 win for Kansas in over almost 40 years right now. So hats off to the Jayhawks. But you talk about the 3 turnovers, the pick 6 where you spot him 7 points right out of the gate. You've got the Marcus Stripling fumble on the kickoff return where why you've got a defensive end in that position in that game where they've already pooch kicked at least once, maybe twice. I'd have to go back and look at it
It
again.
was kind of unintentional into the wind because it was just such a strong win. But I'm pretty sure Ethan Downs was back there last year, so this is a common theme for how they've set up their special teams kick return.
I get that, but also at the same time, I mean, you could put
it shouldn't happen.
You could put a Jaron Kanik back there that's got the hands, but also the size to be able to hold up in the blocking game. You could put a tight end back there. I know Stogner is on the kickoff return team, but you could put a Jake Smith back there in that position, knowing the elements and knowing that they were kicking into a strong win, and the ball was probably ultimately not going to get back to LV Bunkley Shelton or Jalil Farouk. That was just kind of another coaching decision that I just kind of scratched my head at the time. And then we talked about the Jalil Farouk fumble. So you had 3 turnovers. Oklahoma was 2 for 10 on third downs. You had, double-digit penalties, well over 100 yards. Oklahoma shot themselves in the foot time and time again. And Kansas pretty much gave them 5 or 6 opportunities. They were trying to basically say, hey, go win this game, go take it. We're refusing to take it ourselves. And Oklahoma just simply couldn't get out of their own way and couldn't bring it home.
Yeah. Defensively, I kind of walked away from this. And this one's where I think I maybe changed my perception a little bit a day later of, you know what? I think it was kind of okay. You held both running backs below 5 yards per carry. These guys were well above that coming into the game. Jason Bean, I don't think you did the best job of. I think there was a lot of times where the motion and the shifts really hurt this defense. I know earlier today, Teddy Lehman said that, no, he didn't agree with that. He thinks that OU was lined up pretty well. I disagree with that. He's probably right. He played the game at a very high level, so he's probably right. But from my untrained eye, I didn't think that. I thought there were several times where I was like, man, we needed a timeout here. We're not lined up. This doesn't look very good. And I think, again, so OSU we'll talk about here in a second, but I think that will turn more in OU's favor. But we talk about missed tackling. That's guys that are in poor position most often. We saw so many times guys, arms extended, reaching out, trying to arm tackle these running backs, not getting shoulders or bodies on guys. And that's due to guys not being in the right position. They're not lined up correctly. They're responding to motion. Their assignments aren't, locked in. So credit Kansas for coming in with a game plan that really confused this defense, in my opinion. But otherwise, I thought defense was okay. They made the critical plays in the fourth quarter to try to win this game. I don't really fault them for that final drive all that much.
No, and Adam, we talked about it on this episode a week ago going into the KU game that ultimately the thing that was going to have the biggest impact on whether or not Oklahoma could win this game against Kansas was Oklahoma's ability to limit the rushing attack from these 2 running backs in Neal and Highshaw. And if you would have told me that Oklahoma would outrush Kansas by over 40 yards, we would limit Neal and Highshaw to less than 5 yards a carry, closer to 4, then I would have thought that absolutely no chance Kansas would have had to win this game on Saturday. But again, Oklahoma just made the critical mistakes. Yes, they did have a couple of good turnovers towards the end of the game. The Ethan Downs interception, Kendall Dolby made a really nice play in coverage, getting the deflection, allowing Billy Bowman to pick things off. But again, despite those 2 plays, and it goes back over to the offense not being able to execute in crunch time, there were still a couple of moments, and the biggest one that comes to mind was even on the final drive where Oklahoma had the 1-point lead, Key Lawrence dropping the interception, hits him right in the hands between the numbers. That seals the deal for Oklahoma, and we're having a much, less intense conversation on this episode if Oklahoma does find a way to escape. But
there was like 3 dropped interceptions in the game.
Oh, for sure. But to me, Adam, the defense played well enough to win this game yesterday. I chalked this loss up mostly to the offense. Now, there were some good and the bad with Oklahoma's defensive performance yesterday. We'll start with the bad. This was not the Oklahoma defense that we've seen through the first 7 games of the season. The aggressiveness, the punch you in the mouth type of mentality, the physicality was not there yesterday. I thought that our defensive line kind of got pushed around for the most part. There wasn't any pass rush, a ton of missed tackles. For whatever reason, we kind of just chalked it up to maybe we respected Jason Bean's legs too much. A lot of 3-man, 4-man pressures we weren't able to get home. And we were really kind of able to, allow Kansas to run the football and allow Jason Bean to kind of sit back there and pick us apart on some drives from the pocket. But the defense was on the heels for most of the day. And you just can't play that way against an offense like Kansas's. Too many missed tackles, too many times we had a chance to get the Jayhawks off the field on 3rd and 4th down. We just simply gave up too many big plays on the ground and through the air in critical moments. And again, even though there was a lot of bad, is there a bright spot, Adam, that you take away from the defensive performance going into Bedlam on Saturday? Because I can think of one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where you're going to go with this. I think that they responded well throughout the game still. That seems to be a constant theme, that even when they weren't super successful at all times, they still came back and made some critical plays there. I guess Kip Lewis might get some more playing time with the Danny Stutzman injury potentially, but you don't want that at the expense of Stutzman coming off the field.
No, not at all. And the Stutzman injury, that was a gut punch. Although I thought that Kip Lewis played really well, I'm really excited about this kid's future, because to me, when you look at what Kip Lewis does throughout the course of a game, whether it's instincts or, being able to read things and react, I think that he played a lot better than Jaren Kanak yesterday for a huge portion of that game after Danny went down. But, if Danny can't go, or if he's not 100% on Saturday for Bedlam, I think that you expect Kip Lewis to get a lot of run, maybe even potentially get the start in place of Danny Stutzman on Saturday. And when you look at what Oklahoma State's starting to put together, there's no doubt about it what the offensive identity is for that football team, and it is Ollie Gordon. Oklahoma fans should expect a big, big dose of Ollie on Saturday. And, if Danny can't go, then I think that, stopping the run game, just like we said against Kansas, stopping the run game is critical for Oklahoma to have success against Oklahoma State on Saturday. So again, I'm not throwing Jaren Kanak under the bus by any stretch of the imagination. This is only a year and a half he's fully been devoted to playing linebacker in his football career. But I think you got to go with Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie on Saturday. You've got to beef up that front seven. They're going to try and run the ball down your throat on Saturday. They're going to try to get Ollie going from the jump. So yeah, give me Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie at the linebacker position as we go into Bedlam on Saturday.
Yeah, I think definitely stacking the box against Oklahoma State is going to be one of the big keys to having some success there. And quietly, like Gentry Williams didn't play on Saturday. At least I never noticed him on the field. I think he was suited out, but actually never made the field there. And if you're going to stack the box against Oklahoma State, I don't want Connie Walker out there. I want Gentry Williams to be my guy that's taken over that lockdown corner spot, because I think that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to dare Alan Bowman to beat you through the air. And I know he has against OU like a decade ago when he was at Texas Tech. But Ollie Gordon is how this offense runs. And if you're able to limit him, I mean, he went up against a better run defense statistically against Cincinnati and still put up 270 some yards against them. Yeah. So I think you're going to have to slow them down. OU's going to have to be excellent in first down rush defense, the way that they've been throughout most of the year, to try to force Alan Bowman to throw the ball as much as possible, because if he beats you, you take that. You take that and say,
absolutely,
well, it's not our day. We're not the better team there. But you can't let Ollie Gordon just continue to gash you the way he has to everybody else so far the last 5 games.
Well, and that's a decision that Brent Venables and this defensive coaching staff is going to have to make. It's as we sit here at 6:30, 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday night. The game plan for Oklahoma State is currently being worked on as we speak, probably being finalized. So you go into this matchup against the Cowboys. For Oklahoma to have success, you pray for the overall health of some of your guys, getting them back, like a Danny Stutzman, Peyton Bowen. I know we saw him in the final drive up in Lawrence yesterday, but
even Reggie Pearson, he's sitting out the first half, right? So he would be perfect for this game plan.
Absolutely. But I think that this is going to be a game plan when you go up against this Cowboy, offensive attack, where you've got to trust your corners out on an island in key stretches of this game, because you're going to have to commit yourself to, 7, 8 guys in a box. You're going to have to walk your safeties, whether it's Billy Bowman or Key Lawrence or Peyton Bowen. I would hope that we could see a little bit more of Robert Spears Jennings. This is kind of feels like a game that sets up well for him, with his size and the level of physicality that he plays with. But you've got to trust your corners on Saturday to be able to hold up in coverage out on an island, because you're going to have to commit 7, 8, 9 guys at a time to be able to come in and stop Ollie Gordon, especially, first and second down, be able to force them into some obvious passing situations, because if they can stay ahead of the chains on Saturday, if Ollie Gordon, can get them into a 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 type situation, then it's going to be a long day for Oklahoma defensively, because then they're going to be able to have the full playbook at their disposal to be able to kind of pick and choose how they want to attack OU on Saturday.
A lot less motion, a lot less shift in formation for Oklahoma State. They're more of just, hey, we're going to run downhill almost like a traditional I formation team, because they do a lot of pistol set there, but a lot of, they have dual cowboy backs, as I like to call them, those H-back tight end hybrids that are going to pull constantly and go meet you in the hole. I think it fits well for what Brent Venables and what we've seen out of this defense, so far has done. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a game where OU's defense just shines and we shut them out or anything like that. But I think it fits a lot better for what Brent Venables is able to attack. But you have to be good on first down. Like you mentioned, you can't get into the second and fours because they're going to get you alive there. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive side of the ball and the matchup that OU is going to face there. I want to ask you, though, with Jeff Lebby, he kind of lost his swagger against Kansas in that play calling. He's a guy who's been in the profession for a long time, so I'm not worried about his mentality as a coach, but how do you think he gets his swagger back as a play caller that's going to be able to push the ball downfield in great weather conditions?
Yeah, obviously the forecast for Saturday Bedlam looks a lot better than the one that we experienced in Lawrence 24 hours ago, but the biggest way to get your swagger back, trust your quarterback. Obviously, he's played a shit ton of football for you, both at the collegiate level, but also 3 years in the system where you're calling the plays for this kid. He's seen everything that you could possibly throw at him. Bedlam's going to be a hostile atmosphere. Oklahoma State fans, they've been looking forward to this ever since the announcement where OU was going to be leaving the Big 12, going into the SEC. This is the final Bedlam for quite some time. Oklahoma State, we gave them a lot of shit. We talked, we laughed at them after the South Alabama loss. Well, you look up here, as we sit here on October 29th, Oklahoma State is tied for first place in the Big 12, sitting here at 4-1 with 4 other teams in the league. So they've got everything, every goal that Mike Gundy's crew had to start out the regular season with a Big 12 championship appearance, ultimately being the biggest one. It's right out there in front of them. They have an opportunity on Saturday. You've got a wounded Oklahoma team coming into your stadium. It's going to be rocking. 2:30 kickoff. All the Poke fans are going to have the opportunity to get a little bit more juiced up for this one. And you got to trust your quarterback. If you're going to go into this game and you're going to have the same kind of pussyfoot mentality where we're just going to try to line up and run the football to you. If we're going to let Dylan throw the ball, we're going to do the little quick screens. We're going to try to get Gavin the ball in the backfield to try to get around the perimeter. I'm not saying that stuff isn't effective, but there's times where it's not warranted. It's times where it's almost kind of a negative towards the overall, momentum of your offense. And so again, run the football, try to establish it. If you can't, then revert back to what we were doing the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season where we weren't able to consistently run the football. So give Dylan Gabriel the opportunity to drop back, spread the defense out, give your wide receivers the opportunity to, in some one-on-one matchups, to make some plays. And for God's sakes, get the ball in your playmakers' hands. Farouk, Anderson, Gibson, Drake, Stoops. Go down swinging. Get back to that aggressive mentality, Go out there and don't coach scared. Go out there and try to, take the fight to Oklahoma State on Saturday and do what you have to do to score some points, because it's going to take 30+ to beat OSU on Saturday. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in our prediction.
I 100% agree with you. I think there should be a ton of confidence. The weather should be pristine. It should be great for throwing the ball down the field. No reason not to with Dylan Gabriel. But also at the same time, you just had your best rushing performance of the year. It feels like Tawee Walker is very solidified as the guy. So, and you're going up against a Cowboy defense that statistically is not great, really against the run or the pass. Now, they'll play out of their minds. They will play as a top 30 defense on Saturday. I guarantee it. Sure. But I think OU should feel a lot of confidence that, hey, we just had a weather game that we didn't really give our guy an opportunity. Now we're going to go into a great game where we can say, hey, we've got both arms of the offense ready to attack here. I've got a little bit different idea, though, on how Jeff Lebby could regain his swagger. I want him to start channeling some Barry Switzer here. How about 1980, Oklahoma, as you're seeing on the screen here if you're watching YouTube? A little plug for Red and West, our sponsor here at the podcast. They got the 1980 coaches polo. I want Jeff Lebby to put on one of these polos, because in 1980, J.C. Watts and the Sooners put up 63 in Bedlam against Oklahoma State. So I think he needs some of that swagger. He needs some of that Barry Switzer swagger to come back and say, I almost said something that I guess we already have the explicit tag on our podcast this week, but he needs to just come in swinging, really. So, he really went into a shell. And I don't know if that was Jeff Lebby going into a shell or if that was Brent Venables saying go into the shell. Like, we're winning this game with running and defense. But I think this is an opportunity. These games have been shootouts for a reason. So I want to put on the polo from Red and West. and get some of that Barry Switzer swagger going to try to really say, hey, we're the big dog. We've got the better athletes. We don't care how good Oklahoma State's been over the last several weeks. We're going to take the fight to you guys anyway.
Yeah, 100%. When you talk about Red and West, you talk about comfort, you talk about style, and you talk about affordability. And Adam, I'm going to be making the trip right back down. Whether I'm going to be making the trip back down to Norman here in a couple of weeks, and you best believe the Red and West apparel is going to be packed up in the suitcase. You talk about the hats, the t-shirts, the quarter zips, the pullovers. They've got anything and everything for your game day attire needs. So definitely check out Red and West, and hopefully we'll see if we can't get some of the guys at Red and West. Maybe we give them Jeff Lebby's address, see if we can't get some shipped over there, kind of change up the mojo a little bit for this offensive staff as we head to Stillwater on Saturday, because they got to fix something, because you go with that same game plan, you only give Dylan Gabriel the opportunity to throw the ball 12 times over the course of 3.5 quarters, you're going to get run out of the stadium on Saturday, and now we're going to be having a much, much different conversation about this football team and the direction that they're headed.
Anything else on Bedlam before you give a score prediction?
No, I mean, obviously we're doing the set. We've got some different things going on this week that's, kind of minimizing the amount of time that we're going to be able to podcast and do some coverage. But I mean, as it kind of sits here right now, you look at what Oklahoma State's been able to do since the South Alabama loss. They've been able to really, find their identity offensively. They're playing much better defense on that side of the football. But when you watch this team play, what we think is Oklahoma's strength defensively is stopping the run in that front seven. Yes, Danny Stutzman's health is going to be a huge factor for this game on Saturday, but Oklahoma's offense should be able to find some success consistently in Stillwater on Saturday against Oklahoma State's defense. So for that reason, if you can get back to where we were before the Texas game, where you had that killer instinct, you had the chip on your shoulder, you felt like, it was Oklahoma versus the world, you kind of have that a little bit more now in your back pocket to lean on, because after the game after the loss to Kansas on Saturday, whether it's the Brandon Walkers of the world, some of the people on social media, Oklahoma's kind of the laughingstock of college football right now, and what a difference 2 weeks make, obviously the highs and lows of this sport. So get back to your roots, find that toughness, play with physicality, play with aggression, and take the fight to Oklahoma State on Saturday. Dictate the way that they play the game based on your terms and how you want to execute.
So what's your score prediction at the end of the day?
Good God. I knew you were going to put me on the spot here. Adam, I think that the last 2 weeks have shown us that there is a little bit of a problem with this football team. Now, I'm not saying that they're out, there's not enough talent. I'm not saying that these players are not playing hard. They obviously are, but I think that there's an issue within the coaching staff, particularly on the offensive side of the football, with the personnel decisions and, ultimately with, the game plan that's being created. And for that reason, Oklahoma's what right now? 6.5-point favorite going to Stillwater on Saturday. I forget FanDuel. I think it opened at around 7. Okay, the numbers continue to dwindle as we approach, late in the evening on Sunday night. But I think that this is more about Oklahoma State on Saturday. And like I said, the fans, the program, that Mike Gundy's been looking forward to this matchup. It's the final Bedlam before Oklahoma, leaves the Big 12 to go to the SEC. And unless we get the poke choke, unless Mike Gundy finds just another way to screw this thing up, I just think that there's so much momentum on Oklahoma State's side right now, and Oklahoma's backed into a corner. They're in wounded dog mode, and I expect them to come out and put out a really good effort on Saturday. But the health of this football team, particularly on the defensive side of the football, we don't know if we're going to see Stutzman. Gentry's a big concern. How healthy is Peyton Bowen? Reggie Pearson's out for the first half. I think that it spells an upset win for Oklahoma State on Saturday. So for that reason, as we sit here 6 days out before the game, I'm going to predict Oklahoma State to upset the Sooners on Saturday, 34-31.
Field goal for OU in there. I really wonder if they would actually attempt one still, because we didn't see one in Lawrence. I'm of the opinion, I've said it a couple times here on the podcast, I think this offensive game plan from Oklahoma State fits a lot better for what this defense is able to defend much better, even without Danny Stutzman. I think you like the depth at linebacker. Now we'll see if Oklahoma State can find some ways to attack some of those young linebackers if Stutzman is not out there. But I think it's so easy to look at the last 2 games for OU and go, oh, they have no momentum, they suck, there's no way they can go on the road and play this Oklahoma State team that's just surging right now. But you could also look at before the UCF game and say, oh, wow, look at all this momentum for Oklahoma. There's no way that UCF can come in here and give them a game. They're terrible. They haven't beaten a Power 5 team so far this year. It's college football. Things change week to week. These guys are kids. They're resilient. They bounce back. I do wonder about their mentality in regards to, I don't know. I'm sure that they think that they should have executed better against Kansas, but a lot of they're going to see the social media. They're going to see, oh, it was the play calling. Oh, it was the coaches. And I wonder, how much bounce back they have there. But still, at the end of the day, in a game that's probably going to be close because it's Bedlam, we've seen Mike Gundy curl up into his shell a lot in this game. And I think Brent Venables is still the better coach. I think OU still has the better players here. And when it comes down to a close game, especially with these weather conditions, I do think the team with the better quarterback is going to win out at the end of the day. So I've got Oklahoma 41, Oklahoma State 40. I think it's one for the ages in the last game. I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. And I do have OU pulling it out just because I think it's so you can't look at just last week or just UCF. You have to look at the full picture. And I think still we believe this team is much better than Oklahoma State. So I'm going to pick the Sooners still.
Adam, you know that from a motivation and a leadership standpoint, Brent Venables is going to get this team focused. They're going to get back on track, but the coaching only goes so far. You've got to have that leadership, that dog mentality from some of the leaders within that locker room that are on the roster. And you think about some of the kids on OU's roster that grew up in this state. Bedlam has a little bit of a different meaning to them because they grew up in the state. Your family's either wearing crimson or they're wearing that god awful orange. So you look at a player like Trace Ford, you look at a player like Ethan Downs, Gavin Freeman is another one. These guys that grew up in this rivalry, they know the meaning behind it. They know what that trip to Stillwater is going to look like on Saturday. And again, I think we talked about, Adam, I said this right after the Texas game going into UCF, how Oklahoma responds against UCF and Kansas after that, one of the biggest wins, I think, in the program since the 2017 win against Ohio State. How you respond when adversity hits, how you, how you pick yourself up off the mat and respond says more about the culture and the direction and what Brent Venables is building. So if this football team has made strides, if we think that they are going on the right path, then they find a way to go into Bedlam on Saturday. I don't care if you win by 20. I don't care if you win by 1. It's going to be a hostile environment. It's a rivalry game. Throw the records, everything going into this out the window. Find a way to go into Bedlam on Saturday. Get yourself to 5-1 in Big 12 conference play, because if essentially, to me, Texas plays K-State in Austin, OU goes to Stillwater to take on OSU. Those are 2 elimination games for me in the race for the Big 12 championship, being one of the 2 teams to represent your conference in that game. And Oklahoma's got to figure out a way to go into Bedlam on Saturday and squeak out a win.